Most people think winning the lottery solves every problem in life. They imagine happiness, freedom, endless choices, and a future full of peace. But what they don't tell you is this: money doesn't change your family, it exposes them. I learned that the hard way. Because the day I scratched a lottery ticket and won $10 million, I thought my life was finally turning around. I thought this was my chance to breathe, to dream, to finally step out of the shadows. But the truth behind what happened next still shakes me. The moment my family found out, everything shifted. Their voices changed, their smiles changed, even the way they looked at me changed. Some of them treated me like I was suddenly the most important person in the world, while others acted like I owed them everything just because we shared blood. And before I even received a single dollar, I discovered three things that shocked me more than the win itself. First, someone I trusted tried to manipulate me into signing away my future. Second, a family member who barely spoke to me suddenly wanted to take care of my money. And third, someone in my own house plotted behind my back, a plan so bold and selfish that even now, it feels unreal. I didn't expect greed. I didn't expect betrayal. I didn't expect to see people I loved turn into strangers. But what I really didn't expect was this: that I would end up testing every single member of my family, just to see who actually cared about me, and who only cared about the $10 million. Let me show you exactly how this story began. Before all this happened, my life was quiet, almost forgettable. I lived in a small, worn-down apartment on the edge of town, the kind of place with thin walls and neighbors you barely see. I worked long hours at a grocery store, stacking heavy boxes and restocking shelves until my arms ached. I wasn't miserable, but I wasn't happy either. My life felt like a pause button someone forgot to unfreeze. My family wasn't cruel, but they were distant in a way that slowly eats at you. My brother, Jason, always carried himself like he was the better one, the successful one, the one my mother always bragged about while I stood in the background, smiling through the sting. My mother loved me, I know she did, but she never really saw me the way she saw him. She worried about his future, his career, his stress, but with me, she only asked if I still worked at the store. My aunt was complicated. She never missed a chance to point out how small my life was. "How long will you live like this?" she'd say. "You're young, do something big." But somehow, whenever I tried to do something big, she'd be the first to doubt me. I didn't expect any of them to cheer for me, but I also didn't expect what came next. It was a Friday evening. I was exhausted from work and stopped at a tiny corner shop to buy a cold drink. Nothing unusual. But on the counter, sitting by itself, there was one last scratch-off lottery ticket in a bright red roll. The clerk said, "You want it? Last one for the night." I wasn't even planning to buy it, but something, maybe boredom, maybe fate, made me grab it. I sat outside the store with my drink, the air warm and quiet around me, and scratched the ticket without thinking much. At first, I thought I was reading the numbers wrong. My hands actually stopped moving. My breath caught in my throat. 3 matching icons. The gold symbol. And the words, "Congratulations. You have won $10 million. I just stared. The world around me felt suddenly distant, like everything went silent for a second. And then reality hit me. My entire life had changed in one moment. But here's the part no one warns you about. Winning the money didn't make everything better. It didn't fix anything. All it did was light up something dark inside my family. And that darkness was about to show itself in ways I never imagined. Now here's where things get really interesting. The first person I told was my brother. And that was the start of everything. I didn't plan to tell anyone that night. Honestly, I wanted to sit alone, breathe, and try to understand how my whole life had changed with one scratch of a coin. But shock does strange things to your brain. And before I could think twice, my hands were already dialing my brother, Jason. He picked up on the third ring, sounding half asleep and annoyed. "What do you want? It's late." I almost hung up, but something inside me pushed the words out. "Jason, I think I won the lottery." There was a long pause. Not excitement. Not disbelief. Just silence heavy enough to make my heart drop. Then he finally spoke. "What do you mean you think you won?" I told him the amount. $10 million. Suddenly, his whole tone changed. He sat up. His voice sharpened. "You're joking." I'm not. You're serious? He asked again, louder. Yeah. Then came a moment I'll never forget. He didn't say congratulations. He didn't laugh or scream or celebrate. He didn't even ask if I was okay. The first thing he said was, "You need to come to my house. Right now. And bring the ticket." That sentence. That was the moment everything shifted. I didn't understand it then. But looking back, that was the first warning sign. The first sign that winning wasn't a blessing. It was a weapon, and people were already reaching for it. Still, I trusted him. He was my older brother. The smart one. The successful one. The one everyone believed in. My mother, my aunt, the entire family. So I grabbed my jacket, held the ticket in my hand like it was made of glass, and walked to my car. The entire drive there, my heart wouldn't slow down. Not just from excitement but from fear. Because a part of me already sensed it. This money was going to test every relationship in my life. When I reached his house, he opened the door before I even knocked. His eyes weren't on me. They were on the hand that held the lottery ticket. "Let me see it," he said, stepping aside. I handed it to him, and he examined it like a jeweler checking diamonds. He didn't smile. He didn't look proud. He looked calculating. After a long minute, he finally looked up and said something that turned my stomach. "You're too naive to handle this." Just like that. Like I was a child who had picked up a dangerous object. "I'm not naive," I said, trying to laugh it off. But Jason wasn't joking. "You don't understand how people work," he said. "You barely make enough to live. You don't know contracts, taxes, financial planning." "I can learn." "You don't have time to learn," he cut in. "You could lose all of it. You could screw this up. You should let me manage the money. I know what I'm doing." And then he did something that shocked me. He reached into his drawer and pulled out a paper. A contract. Already printed. Already prepared. And that's when everything inside my chest froze. "Why do you have this?" I asked. He didn't flinch. "I printed it months ago. Just in case something like this happened." "Months ago? Just in case?" He said it like winning was normal. Like he always expected this moment, and planned for it without telling me. He slid the paper toward me and said, "Sign this, and I'll handle everything. We'll invest. We'll grow it, but I need full control. You can't make emotional decisions." Full control. He wanted everything. I felt my palms sweat. The room suddenly felt colder. "You trust me, right?" he said, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. And for the first time in my life, I saw my brother clearly. Not as the hero of the family. Not as the responsible one. But as someone who saw me as a stepping stone. A tool. A doorway to a life he wanted. My throat felt dry. "I need time to think." He didn't like that. His jaw clenched. "You don't need time. You need guidance. I'm not signing anything tonight." He stared at me, eyes sharp. "That's a mistake." Maybe it was. But it was my mistake to make. I stood, took the ticket back, and walked toward the door. He didn't stop me. He didn't call out after me. But as I stepped outside, I heard him say under his breath, "You're going to regret this." That was revelation number one. My brother didn't want to protect me. He wanted to control me. But if you think that's crazy, wait until you hear this. Because what happened next wasn't just greed. It was manipulation, lies, and a plan that someone in my family had already set in motion long before I even won a single dollar. And the person behind it wasn't who I expected. Not even close. Just wait. The second revelation changed everything. The person I trusted the most wasn't my brother. It was my mom, and she shocked me even more. When I drove away from my brother's house that night, I honestly thought the worst part was over. I thought the cold look in his eyes, the contract waiting in his drawer, and the way he tried to take control of my life was the biggest betrayal I would face. But I was wrong. That was only the warm-up. Because the next day, something happened that I still struggle to understand. Something that showed me the truth about my family, and the role I had played in it my whole life. It started with a simple text message from my mom. "Come home, we need to talk." Just 5 words. But my stomach twisted the moment I read them. It wasn't a request. It wasn't gentle or loving. It was an order. Still, she was my mother. You don't ignore your mother. Not after everything she did for us growing up. Not after the sacrifices she always talked about. So I went. When I reached the house, the first thing I noticed was that the blinds were closed, even though it was a bright morning. The hallway lights were on. Everything felt tight, quiet, heavy. I stepped inside and saw her sitting at the dining table with a cup of coffee. She didn't look up. She didn't smile. Her fingers tapped the side of the mug, slow and sharp. Sit. I sat. She didn't waste time. Your brother told me, she said flatly. I didn't even have to ask what he told her. I already knew. You won the lottery. I nodded. She took a long breath, and her eyes slowly moved up to meet mine. What I saw there wasn't joy. It wasn't surprise. It wasn't love or pride. It was calculation. Just like my brother. But what she said next, that was something I never saw coming. You're not ready for money, she said. But our family is. I blinked. Our family? Yes, she said. We've always struggled. Your brother tried to help you, but you ran out like a child. Now I'm telling you what's best. What's best for who? I asked quietly. For all of us, she replied without blinking. She took something from the drawer and placed it on the table. A folder. Red. Thick. Already organized. And when she opened it, my heart almost stopped. Inside were documents. Dozens of them. Already filled out with my name. Bank transfer forms. Authorization agreements. Power of attorney papers. It was all there. All ready. All waiting for only one thing. My signature. I stared at the papers, unable to breathe for a moment. When did you prepare this? She didn't even try to lie. A while ago, she said. Ever since your aunt won last year. I remembered that. My aunt had won $20,000 in a scratch-off. It wasn't life-changing, but it had caused whispers. Arguments. Jealousy. But this? $10 million? This wasn't jealousy. This was strategy. You planned this before I even won? I whispered. She nodded. As a mother, it's my job to keep the family together. And money destroys families if the wrong person holds it. The wrong person? I repeated, my voice shaking. You mean me? She didn't hesitate. You don't know how to manage your own life. How will you manage $10 million? Her words hit me like a punch. Hard, cold, direct. And I finally saw the truth. To her, I wasn't a daughter. I wasn't someone to support or protect. I was an asset, a resource, a financial opportunity. And she wanted control. She slid the pen across the table. Sign. Let me and your brother take care of this. We'll use it wisely. We'll build something real. And you'll have a small allowance every month so you don't waste anything. A monthly allowance. My own mother wanted me to survive on allowance, from my own money. Then she added something that cut deeper than anything else that day. You owe us this. We raised you. We fed you. We paid your bills. You should be grateful. Grateful. She used that word like a knife. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. So that's why you want me to sign everything over? No, she said sharply. I expect you to sign because you're part of this family. And family supports each other. But family also supports me, I said quietly. She leaned back, crossing her arms. Not if you act selfish. That word, selfish, hit me in a way I can't explain. Because for so many years, I believed them. I believed that whenever there was a problem, it was my fault. Whenever there was tension, it was because I didn't try hard enough. Whenever they were cold, it was because I misunderstood them. And now, sitting across from her, watching her push my own future across the table with a pen, I realized something. I wasn't the selfish one. They were. My mother leaned forward. You don't leave this house until you sign, she said, her voice low and firm. I looked at the pen. Then at her. Then at the papers filled with my name. And I felt the shift inside me. The same one I felt last night with my brother. A breaking point. A place inside that finally said, enough. I stood slowly from the chair. I'm not signing, I said softly. She slammed her hand on the table. You ungrateful. I walked toward the door. Don't you dare walk away from me, she said, but I kept walking. You think you can handle this money? She yelled after me. You think the world won't chew you up? You think you're smarter than your family? I paused with my hand on the doorknob. No, I said. But I'm finally smart enough to see the truth. And I walked out. I thought that was the end of it. I thought they would calm down, accept my decision, maybe even try to understand. But I had no idea what was coming next. Because when people feel money slipping through their fingers, they don't get calmer. They get dangerous. And the next twist wasn't manipulation. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't pressure. It was a plan. A coordinated, deliberate plan. A plan that involved more than just my mother and brother. A plan I wasn't supposed to discover. But I did. And that secret changed everything. This brings us to the most shocking discovery of all. The secret meeting. The real plan. And the moment I realized my family had been preparing to take everything from me long before I won. When I left my mother's house that day, there was a strange numbness inside me. Not anger. Not sadness. Just a hollow space where something used to be. Something like trust, or hope, or the idea that family meant safety. The air outside felt heavier than the air inside the house. It pressed against my chest in a way that made it hard to breathe. And for a moment, standing in the driveway, I wondered if I had done the right thing. Then I remembered the folder. The pre-filled forms. The pen sliding across the table like a weapon. Yes, I had done the right thing. But what I didn't know, what I had no way of knowing, was that the real betrayal wasn't behind me. It was ahead. The next few days were quiet in a way that made me uneasy. No messages from my mother. No calls from my brother. No passive-aggressive texts. No guilt trips. No family meetings. Just silence. And silence, when it comes suddenly after chaos, is never a good sign. On the fourth day, something strange happened. I received a voicemail from my cousin, Sam. We weren't close. He was one of those relatives you see only at weddings or funerals. Someone who always had a new business idea, a new hustle, a new reason he needed to borrow money. He never called me. Ever. But that day, he did. And his message was short, rushed, and whispered like he didn't want someone else to hear. Call me back. It's about your family. And what they're planning. My heart dropped. Planning. That word hit me like a cold slap. Because it meant only one thing. This wasn't over. Not even close. I called him back immediately, but he didn't answer. I tried again. Nothing. Finally, I texted him. What do you mean? What are they planning? No reply. But 2 hours later, he sent me an address. No explanation. No context. Just an address. A warehouse on the edge of town. I stared at the message for a long time, debating whether I should go. It felt wrong. Dangerous. Almost like stepping into a trap. But something in my gut insisted. You need to know the truth. So I went. The warehouse was old. The kind of place where rust eats the walls and the windows are covered with wooden boards. Inside, faint yellow light leaked through cracks in the roof, forming dusty beams in the air. I parked a little distance away, killed the headlights, and walked quietly toward one of the side windows. I didn't know what I expected to find, but it wasn't this. Inside the warehouse, they were all there. My brother, my mother, my aunt, 2 cousins, even my uncle. The one who never leaves his house unless there's free food involved. They were standing in a circle around a folding table. My heart thudded against my ribs. And on the table were more folders, documents, printouts, sheets with my name at the top. But the one that made my stomach twist was a whiteboard behind them. On it, written in thick black marker, was a single phrase. Control Plan, Phase 2. Phase 2. Which meant there had been a Phase 1. And suddenly it all made horrifying sense. My brother's faked concern. My mother's folder. Their sudden urgency. Their pressure. Their manipulation. None of it was spontaneous. None of it was emotional. It was organized. It was planned. It was intentional. I edged closer to the window, heart pounding. Their voices were muffled, but I could hear enough. My aunt, she's stubborn. I told you she wouldn't sign that easily. My mother, frustrated. She will. She has always done what I say. Always. She just needs to be reminded who she owes. My brother. That's what phase 2 is for. Phase 2. I swallowed, palms sweating. My cousin Sam wasn't there, which meant he didn't just warn me, he stayed away so they wouldn't suspect him. I pressed my ear closer to the window. My uncle. So what exactly is the next step? My brother sighed, annoyed, like this was all obvious to him. We need more pressure. Emotional pressure. She's scared of being alone. Use that. My mother chimed in. She loves the idea of family. Use that. My aunt added. She still feels guilty about the past. Especially about the accident. Use that. I froze. The accident. A moment from my past I never talked about. A moment they knew hurt me deeply. A moment they were now planning to use against me. My breath shook. Then my brother continued. Once she breaks emotionally, she'll sign anything. And if she doesn't, he paused, the room going quiet. My uncle. If she doesn't? My brother exhaled through his teeth. We get legal control another way. My mother nodded. We can claim she's mentally unstable. She has a history of anxiety. She's always been fragile. We can say she isn't capable of managing that kind of money. A chill crawled down my spine. They weren't just trying to manipulate me anymore. They were preparing to take legal control of my life. My finances. My decisions. My freedom. My aunt scribbled something on a notepad. How long would that take? My brother shrugged. A few weeks. Maybe less. We already talked to someone who can help. My mother asked sharply. And if she runs? My brother smirked. She won't. She has nowhere to go. Something inside me cracked. Because he wasn't talking about my home. He was talking about emotionally. He thought I was trapped. He thought I would always come back. They all did. They thought I was weak. They thought I was scared. They thought I was incapable without them. And for the first time in my life, standing outside that dusty warehouse, watching my own family plot to take everything from me, I realized something. They didn't know me at all. Not the real me. Not the me who had struggled alone before. Not the me who had survived things they didn't even care about. Not the me who had learned to stand on my own when they weren't there. They only knew the version of me they could control. And that version no longer existed. I stepped back from the window, my hands trembling, not from fear, but from clarity. I knew exactly what I had to do. Not run. Not hide. Not sign their papers or attend their family meetings. No. I had to do something bigger. Something they would never expect. Something that would change everything. This wasn't about money anymore. This was about freedom. This was about taking my life back. And what I did next set off the final confrontation. A confrontation that would reveal even deeper betrayal. A confrontation that would force me to choose between family and myself. And it all started with a single decision that night. A decision that would turn their entire plan upside down. The choice I made that night didn't just change my future. It exposed every truth my family tried to bury. When I left the warehouse, the cold night air hit my face so sharply it felt like reality itself was slapping me awake. Every step I took toward my car felt heavier, like I was carrying the weight of every lie, every manipulation, every moment I had excused their behavior because they were family. But now I knew the truth. They weren't trying to protect me. They weren't trying to help me. They weren't even trying to guide me. They were trying to own me. And that changed everything. I sat in the driver's seat for a long time before turning the key, staring through the windshield as my breath fogged up the glass. My family, the people who should have loved me most, had built an entire plan, a system, a strategy to take control of my life. And they'd done it calmly, casually, like this was just business. But what they didn't realize was this. When people try to control you, they always assume they know your next move. They assume you'll break the same way you did before, cry the same way, apologize the same way, bend the same way. But I wasn't that person anymore. Not after everything life had already put me through. Not after years of learning how to survive without them. Not after winning the money that proved I didn't need their approval to succeed. Their entire plan was built on the wrong version of me. And because of that, Their plan was already collapsing. That night, I didn't go home. I didn't go to my apartment. I didn't go anywhere near the places they knew I'd run to when I was overwhelmed. Instead, I checked into a small hotel across town. The kind of place no one pays attention to, where every room looks the same and no one remembers your name. I needed distance. I needed silence. But most of all, I needed a plan of my own. Because if my family was launching phase 2, then I needed something stronger. Something they couldn't predict. Something they couldn't twist. Something they couldn't use against me. And as I lay on that stiff hotel bed, staring at the ceiling, the realization hit me like a slow, steady wave. For the first time in my life, I had something they couldn't touch. Not the money. Not the lottery ticket. Not the bank account. Power. The power to choose. The power to walk away. The power to build a life they weren't part of. And that's when I understood something deeper. Something that applies to anyone going through betrayal or manipulation. Money doesn't change people. It reveals them. My family didn't become greedy because I won. They always were. I just never saw it clearly before. And another truth followed right behind it. People who depend on your weakness will always panic when you become strong. That's why they were rushing. That's why they were planning. That's why they were meeting in secret warehouses and drawing plans on whiteboards like I was some kind of business target. Because for the first time, I wasn't the powerless one. I wasn't the desperate one. I wasn't the one begging for scraps of affection. I had something they couldn't control, and it terrified them. The next morning, I woke up with a different kind of clarity. Not anger. Not revenge. Not fear. Peace. A quiet, steady peace that came from knowing I had finally seen my family for who they really were. Not through emotion, not through guilt, but through truth. And once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. You can't go back. You can't pretend you didn't hear what they said. You can't pretend they didn't plan to use your past pain to break you. Truth forces you forward. And that morning, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I needed evidence. Not for revenge. Not to expose them. Not to embarrass them. But to protect myself. Because they had already discussed claiming I was mentally unstable. They had already discussed legal action. They had already discussed using my past struggles. Things I had told them in vulnerability, as weapons. I needed protection before they launched phase 2. So I went back to the warehouse. This time, I didn't hide outside. I went inside. And what I found there changed everything. The warehouse was empty now, silent except for the faint echo of my footsteps. But the table, the folders, the whiteboard, they were still there. Like they hadn't even tried to clean it up. Like they were so confident in their plan, they didn't think they needed to hide anything. My hands shook as I took pictures of everything. The whiteboard, the documents, the notes with my name, the strategy steps. Phase 2. Emotional pressure. Legal angle. Control. Every word felt like a knife. But every picture felt like armor. And as I stood there, phone in hand, something inside me shifted. I wasn't afraid of them anymore. I was done being their victim. I was done being their pawn. I was done being their weak one. For the first time, I had the advantage. And when someone who has been controlled their entire life finally realizes they have power, everything changes. Everything. I spent the next 2 days building something my family didn't expect. Not a lawsuit. Not a press release. Not revenge. A boundary. A hard, unbreakable, undeniable boundary. Something no manipulation could cross. Something no guilt could weaken. Something no family meeting could undo. I changed my number. I blocked them on everything. I told my workplace to deny any calls asking about me. I hired a financial advisor, not to handle the money, but to witness and document that I was making decisions independently. I even met with a lawyer, who looked through the photos I'd taken and said something I didn't expect. You don't just have protection. You have proof of attempted coercion. Coercion. A word that sounded clinical, legal, official. A word that perfectly described what they were doing. The lawyer didn't tell me what to do. They just gave me options. Clear, safe, realistic options. And for the first time in my life, I had the power to choose something that wasn't based on fear or guilt. It was based on self-respect. But actions always create reactions. And on the third day, when my family realized they couldn't reach me, they snapped. It started with my mother showing up at my apartment, then my aunt, then my brother, then all of them. Pounding on the door, calling through the hallway, pretending to be worried, claiming I was making a mistake, insisting I come talk like family. But their voices weren't soft. They were harsh, sharp, panicked. Because now they were losing control. And people who lose control often reveal the last ugly parts they were hiding. My brother screamed that I was being dramatic. My aunt yelled that I was throwing everything away. My uncle said I was selfish and unstable. I didn't open the door. I didn't say a word. Instead, I sat on the floor inside, calm, still, breathing deeply. And I realized something profound. Sometimes the best revenge is silence. Not shouting, not arguing, not crying. Just silence. Because silence means power has shifted. And they felt it. They felt it so deeply that after an hour of yelling, threatening, and pretending to care, they left. And in that moment, that quiet moment after the last footsteps faded down the hall, I understood something important for anyone listening to this story. You do not owe access to people who plan your downfall, not even if they share your blood, not even if they raised you, not even if they call it love. Family is not a license to destroy you. And just because someone created you, doesn't mean they are entitled to control you. That realization was the beginning of my freedom. But the final reveal, the one that tied everything together, the one that shattered the last illusion I had about my family, came 1 week later. A reveal that showed me their plan went even deeper, that they had been preparing for this long before the lottery win, and that the real reason they wanted control had nothing to do with money. It was something far darker. And the truth behind it would shock me more than anything that had happened so far. The truth behind it would shock me more than anything that had happened so far. I remember standing in my hallway, the envelope still shaking in my hand, my heartbeat heavy in my ears. The house around me felt too quiet, too still, like it was holding its breath with me. I didn't sit down. I couldn't. I just opened the second letter and unfolded the pages slowly, almost afraid of what I'd see next. And when my eyes moved across the words, something inside me went cold. Because this wasn't about the money. This wasn't about the $10 million. This was about control, about ownership, about something they had been hiding from me since before I even understood what loyalty was. My parents and sister had filed something months before my lottery win. Something called a financial guardianship request, a legal move usually used for people who can't handle their own decisions. According to the stamp date, they filed it 2 weeks after my last argument with them. They labeled me as emotionally unstable, financially irresponsible, unable to maintain adult judgment. Reading those words felt like swallowing glass. It wasn't true. It was never true. But they knew, they knew those words would work if the day came where I gained anything worth taking. And according to the lawyer's letter, that day had arrived the moment the lottery numbers matched mine. My hands went numb. My parents had tried to declare me unfit to touch my own money before I even had it. They wanted the court to hand everything to them automatically if I ever came into wealth. They weren't asking to protect me. They were positioning themselves to own me. But the part that hit me the hardest was the timing. They had prepared this trap long before luck chose me. Long before they knew I'd win anything. Which meant they didn't trust me. They never did. Even when we had nothing, they had imagined a future where I might rise, and they wanted to be the ones holding the leash. I felt my throat tighten. It was strange. Most people talk about betrayal like it's a sharp pain, like a knife in the back. But this didn't feel sharp. It felt heavy, like a weight pressing on my chest, making it hard to breathe. The idea that my own family had planned a world where I succeeded, only so they could steal it, made me feel smaller than I had ever felt in my life. And yet, there was more. The lawyer's notes hinted at something else, a secondary motive. A reason my family didn't want me to have independence. Something about prior agreements. Something that apparently started years ago. And the last line of the page made my stomach drop. Your family's behavior is tied to an older secret. One they've kept from you for over a decade. I remember whispering into the empty room, "What secret?" But no one answered. Not yet. Because the next morning, another letter arrived. And that was when everything truly broke open. The next morning felt wrong the moment I opened my eyes. It wasn't the sunlight or the quiet. It was the heavy feeling in the air, like the day already knew something I didn't. And when I walked outside to check the mailbox, something I normally never did that early, I swear my heart knew before my eyes did. There was another envelope, same cream paper, same thin black border, same handwriting that didn't belong to my family, but to the attorney who had been handling everything since the lottery win. I didn't even wait to get inside. I tore it open right there on the porch, the cool morning air brushing against my shaking hands. And this time, what I found inside wasn't just a letter. It was a copy of something old, older than my lottery win, older than the guardianship request, older even than the fights and the insults and the years of being treated like the outsider in my own home. It was a signed agreement. A contract, dated over 11 years ago. My mother's signature, my father's signature, and something else, a line that made my whole body tense as I read it again and again, trying to convince myself it wasn't real. In the event of any major inheritance, settlement, windfall, or financial gain received by our child, we agree to claim 100% of said funds as family property. Family property. Those two words made the world tilt for a moment. I looked at the paper again, at the date, at the signatures, at the official seal, and I felt time fold in on itself. 11 years ago, I was barely out of high school. I had no money, no assets, no success, nothing that would ever hint I'd win a life-changing amount. So why would they sign something like this back then? Why were they planning for a future where I earned something big? Why were they positioning themselves to take it? That's when I noticed the second page. A handwritten note from the attorney, in short, neat sentences, almost like he wanted to keep every word sharp and undeniable. They did not create this agreement to protect you. They created it because someone warned them you would become wealthy one day. I felt my skin crawl. Someone warned them? Who, and how? I stepped inside my house, shut the door, and leaned against it, trying to process the whirlwind of questions that hit me all at once. The betrayal was deep, yes, but the mystery beneath it was even deeper. Because this wasn't just greed anymore. This wasn't just family trying to take advantage of sudden luck. This was something planned, calculated, expected, long before the lottery. Long before any of us could predict I'd ever have more than a few dollars in my bank account. And the more I thought about it, the more it made sense why they pushed me down all those years. Why I was always the one blamed. Why I was always doubted. Why every achievement I had, even the small ones, was belittled or ignored. They weren't just trying to control me. They were trying to keep me in a box, small enough to hold, quiet enough to manipulate, weak enough to manage. Because they believed a moment like this was coming. And they wanted to be ready. But the letter wasn't finished. There was one more line. The line that made my entire body freeze as I read it. The person who warned them left you something too. I felt the air leave my lungs. Who could it be? Who knew my parents well enough to warn them? Who cared about me enough to leave something behind? I felt the hair on the back of my neck rise. Because the next words were even heavier. You will receive another envelope tomorrow. Do not ignore it. It contains the truth your family never intended for you to see. That was when I realized. This wasn't about the lottery at all. This was about a secret tied to me. To my past. To something buried so deep, my family had kept it hidden for more than a decade. And tomorrow? Tomorrow was the day it would finally surface. The moment I read that hidden folder on my mom's old laptop, my stomach twisted so hard I thought I might get sick. There were emails, plans, conversations, lists. And my name was all over them. Not just from a week ago. Not from the day they learned about the lottery. From years. My sister Michelle, my mom, even Mark. They had been building a plan long before any money entered the picture. It wasn't a plan to support me. It wasn't a plan to help me grow up. It was a plan to control me. But when I scrolled further, I realized it wasn't even about control. It was something else. Something darker. Something I never could have imagined. My mom had saved dozens of messages between her and Michelle. We need to keep her close. She's the only one we can depend on long term. If she leaves the city, we're done for. Her future income is all we have. Future income? I had never earned more than minimum wage in my entire life. Why would they rely on me financially? Then I found the attachment that made everything click. A contract. Between Michelle, my mother, and a private elder care company. And my name was listed as the financially responsible party. Meaning, I wasn't just their daughter. I wasn't just their sister. I was their escape plan. Their retirement plan. Their emergency plan. Their, in case everything else fails, plan. They had signed documents stating that I would be legally responsible for paying for their care if anything happened to them financially. Back then it didn't matter. I was broke. I was nothing. But the second I became a millionaire, suddenly, the plan they'd been building for years became perfect. That's why Michelle tried to isolate me. That's why she pushed the narrative of me being unstable. That's why she needed power of attorney. Not for my sake. For theirs. For their future. For their security. I wasn't family. I was an investment. I was their lifeline. And now that I had money, they wanted to cash out. The folder had one last file. An audio recording. Dated just 3 weeks before my lottery win. My mother's voice. Michelle's voice. Even Mark. Talking. Whispering. Planning. I hit play. And the first thing I heard was Michelle. She doesn't understand how the world works. She's always been easy to guide. My mother sighed. We just need her to stay dependent. If she thinks she can live on her own, we lose everything. Mark added. Once we get her settled in the guest room, I'll make sure she's comfortable. She'll listen to me. My stomach twisted. Comfortable? Listen to him? What did that even mean? Michelle. When the time comes, and anything major happens financially, she'll sign whatever we tell her to sign. She trusts too much. My mother. Good, because when we get older, and we can't work, she'll be the only one left to take care of us. My entire body felt numb. My hands shook. My throat burned. They weren't planning to support me. They weren't scared for me. They weren't being protective. They were preparing me, grooming me, conditioning me. To be their caretaker, their provider, their insurance policy. Long before the lottery. Long before money. I was never a daughter. I was never a sister. I was a tool. A resource. A long-term investment they could manipulate and harvest. And the second I became worth millions, they activated the plan. I waited for them all to get home. This time, I wasn't scared. I wasn't confused. I wasn't emotional. I was done. When they walked in, my mom first, then Michelle, then Mark, I didn't give anyone a chance to speak. I opened the laptop, hit play on the recording, turned the volume all the way up. They froze. Michelle went pale. Mom covered her mouth. Mark stepped back like he'd been slapped. When the recording ended, the room was dead silent. Then I spoke calmly. Tell me where I misunderstood. Go ahead, I'll wait. Michelle tried first. Listen, that was taken out of context. I laughed. Out of context? You said I was easy to guide. She shut up. Mom stepped forward, hands shaking. Honey, we didn't mean it like. Stop. My voice cut through the room like a blade. You weren't protecting me. You were preparing me. Mom's eyes welled up with guilt. Or maybe fear. You wanted control, not because of the money, but because I was the only one young enough, healthy enough, and naive enough to take care of you later. Michelle swallowed hard. It wasn't like that. We didn't want to end up alone. And you decided my entire life for me without asking? Her silence told the truth. Then I turned to Mark. You said you'd make me comfortable. What did you mean by that? He stuttered. I just meant, I was going to help you adjust. By isolating me? By telling me I should stay home more? By checking my texts? By trying to be the one I needed? His face collapsed. He was guilty. All of them were. And they knew the game was over. I stood and grabbed my things. This was never love. This was ownership. And you don't own me. They begged. They cried. They apologized. But I was done. I walked out the door without a single glance back. I called my lawyer. I revoked all previous documents. I ensured none of their contracts could ever legally bind me. Then I moved to a new city, bought my own place, started a business, found real friends, found independence, found myself. They tried reaching out for months. But I didn't answer. Not out of anger. Not out of revenge. But because letting them back into my life would mean surrendering the freedom I fought so hard to claim. And I refused to be anyone's backup plan ever again. A year later, I received a long email from Michelle. No manipulation. No guilt. Just truth. They had lost the house. Lost their savings. Lost their stability. And in her final paragraph, she wrote, "I always believed you were the weak one. But the truth is, you were the only strong one among us." She said she hoped I was living a better life. And I was. For the first time ever. Because sometimes, family isn't who raises you. Sometimes, family is who respects you. And the people who tried to control me? They were never my family at all. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need justice. I didn't need an apology. All I needed was freedom. And that $10 million lottery ticket didn't change my life. It revealed it. It showed me who truly cared. And who only cared as long as they could control me. And now? Now I finally know the truth. Winning the lottery never tested my family. It exposed them. And losing them was the real win.